Hello everyone, and welcome to the Chronicles of Clown Country with the unofficial tour guide of Sweden, Angry Foreigner. On today's episode, Tegnell lied, and people died as Sweden sighed because their image was decried. Now, if you think that a limp dick haiku is not the most appropriate way to start this video off, wait until you see what my country's actually doing. Kinda makes me look good by comparison. Even with every edgelord moment combined, still got better PR. Swedish Pension Agency released a report where it blankly states if the year 2021 starts off with 2,000 less senior citizens due to deaths from corona, payouts for the entire year will be 306 million less. So for every 2,000 pensioners that die, Sweden's government saves 306 million. So it's no wonder our Prime Minister considers his strategy successful and something to be proud of. If you've seen the horror movie Midsummer, it really is. During last fall, contagion was increasing with 35%, but Tegnell lied to the entire country and claimed that the situation was stable. This was written about mid-April, and he still has a job. Headlines undermine the severity, of course. The translation is that Tegnell understated, quote-unquote. That's not really honest language in this context. You have to read the fine print of the article to see how vulgar his perversion truly is. And obviously every media that reported on it missed the mark. By the time of last fall, this is what Sweden looked like, and still looks like, as Tegnell still believed in herd immunity and that Sweden would never have a second wave. That's probably why he lied, not understated, flat out lied, and caused many people to die. Usually that's something you're held responsible for. Sweden now surpassed 1 million people infected, confirmed, but the real number is estimated at 2 million, and no herd immunity in sight. Instead, new strains are just mutating that are stronger and hitting young people harder, and Tegnell is accurately compared with a Nazi by America's White House Corona advisor. Thank you very much, by the way, Mr. Slavitz. A poorly kept secret in this country is that Swedes are desperate for America's approval. They try to imitate a lot that you do. So when the actual big brother of the world wags their finger, these lemmings cuck and crackle a little bit each time. In leaked emails, Tegnell said keeping schools open is good to reach herd immunity faster, but that this word can't be used in public due to the connotations. That is not how a free and open society works, but of course Swedes celebrate him nonetheless.
When there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. Nice to fall and did it my way.
Swedes love him, even though it was revealed he deleted tons of work emails, which is not just illegal, but also creepy. Especially since it's also been exposed, through these emails, that the strategy has indeed been herd immunity all along. And once again, he still has his job! So we don't have herd immunity. We're just aiming for herd immunity, but we can't call it herd immunity because, it doesn't sound nice. Gee, I wonder why this logic feels so familiar. We don't have no-go zones in Sweden. We just have extremely segregated neighborhoods where Sharia police and criminal gangs exercise more power than public officials and police, but they're not no-go zones. Because the police drive in there anyway, and get pelted with rocks and get beaten up, but they drive in anyway. So it's not no-go zones. God, can you stop spreading such fake news? You think I'm funny? That's what the Prime Minister said.
But it's not like you have these no-go zones.
And yeah, with that reasoning, can't be a no-go zone if cops still drive in and get beat up. Can't be herd immunity if we don't tell people about it. We don't have a rape crisis going on in Sweden. Women here are just so comfortable and happy and utopian that they just report everything. Everything!
You had me going there for the first part. The second half kind of threw me.
Well, dude, think about it. She's out in the middle of nowhere with some dude she barely knows. She looks around her. What does she see? Nothing but open ocean. There's nowhere for me to run. What am I going to do? Say no?
Okay, that that seems really dark.
No, it's not dark. You're misunderstanding me, bro.
I think
Yeah, you are. Because if the girl said no, then the answer obviously is no.
No,
But the thing
right.
is she's not gonna say no. She would never say no because of the implication.
Now, you've said that word implication a couple of times. What implication?
The implication that things might go wrong for her if she refuses to sleep with me. Now, not that things are gonna go wrong for her, but she's thinking that they will.
But it sounds like she doesn't want to have sex
Why aren't you
with
understanding this?
I don't...
She doesn't know whether she wants to have sex with me. It's that
She doesn't
that's not
know?
the issue.
Are you gonna
could
hurt women?
I'm not gonna hurt these
Oh,
women.
okay.
Why would I ever hurt these women?
I don't know.
feel like you're not getting this at all.
I'm not getting it.
God damn. Well, don't you look at me like that. You certainly wouldn't be in any danger.
So they are in danger.
No one's in any danger. How can I make that any more clear to you?
Gets a bit tedious. Here's a graph from April. When you're doing worse than Bosnia, maybe you should start reconsidering. My home country doesn't even have welfare. And you can buy a diploma there. So, war-torn, corrupt Eastern Europe is doing better than wealthy humanitarian superpower you. On this note, a frequently quoted professor in Swedish media has been Agnes Wold. She had this to say about corona.
Det är ju en riktig patogen, ja visst. Och den är dödar folk och så. Men som tur är så dödar den ju i princip bara gamla människor. Det får vi vara faktiskt ganska tacksamma för.
Nobody cared. I did see some alternative media outlets covering this and a few angry Swedes on Twitter, but no broad protest or reaction to anything from even half the population, even though it's on state TV. I noticed the entire world has been asking, why is Sweden doing this? What are the good, whole, first feminist government in history social democrats doing? Well, when I did my video on why Sweden needs to change their drug policy, because we now have the #1 highest drug deaths in all of Europe, so it's not just gang shootings, involuntary gangbangs, and corona, Sweden's drug policy would make Nixon jealous. It would make him wet. I'm not a common... It's just natural lubricant. So I did some deep diving into the Social Democrats' history, and what I discovered about their ideology was quite interesting. See, they used to do eugenics a lot. Racial hygiene. They inspired Hitler, so obviously that's why they cooperated during the war. Neutrality was a lie, but that's a different video I've made. They kept doing forced sterilizations up until the 70s. So, who did they sterilize? Well, gypsies, transgender, people with mental issues, sluts, literally promiscuity was a reason, mentally challenged people, and the antisocial. Why did they do this? For the welfare state, of course. The purpose with this was not just racial hygiene, but also public health reasons, meaning wiping out the weak so only healthy people remain, and financial reasons, meaning less people on welfare makes the welfare state stronger, since you're saving money. So, yeah, right now I'm just having flashbacks to a time where I wasn't even born. You could say that, in a lot of ways, the cultural obsession with social hygiene never went away. It's very clear in how Sweden treats users and dope abusers, but it also became clear with the elderly. The groups struck hardest by corona here have been pensioners and immigrants, two of our most welfare-dependent groups, statistically speaking. It's funny how people outside of Sweden are very impressed by the number of immigrants that Sweden takes in, but fail to notice that white people don't live with black people here, generally speaking. Confidential internal documents reveal Swedish health authorities were aiming for herd immunity all along, no matter the costs. Literally, leaked emails stated that testing is too expensive, so let's keep it to a minimum. So, the country that spends $400 billion on immigration thinks basic hospital equipment is too expensive. But I thought open borders were supposed to pay off. Tegnell also tried to convince Britain's PM Boris Johnson to do herd immunity. Had he succeeded, more people would be dead today. When Johnson was lobbied against introducing a lockdown, experts say it resulted in 1.3 million extra COVID infections. Now, here's Swedish state propaganda telling me that everything is okay here in Sweden, and infections are lower than they actually are. They've done this for about a year through different propaganda reports. That's all the Swedish media has been doing, undermining. When state media gets caught by one of the few real journalists in Sweden, state media claims they lack resources to make their own graph, instead of using a misleading one. 8.4 billion in tax funding every year for these scumbags, and they never even get the most basic shit right. Essentially, Sweden has been acting like China acted in the beginning when they were trying to cover everything up. Yeah, Sweden has been doing that for a year though. So it's kind of like living in a left-wing competition here. And I don't like it. Whenever our public health agency would hold press conferences, foreign journalists on average asked more critical questions than Swedish ones. Numerous Swedish mainstream outlets actually regret not using these press conferences as a stage to parade their excellent high-quality journalism through critical questions that are never asked otherwise. Yeah, that's what you regret. Not all the people dying because of your mind-blowing corrupt incompetence and inability to report even the most basic facts. Why is a YouTuber ahead of you? Did you ask that? But golly gosh, you sure missed a chance to impress the world by lying there, making sure that the image of Sweden isn't soiled, while the reality is like wading through a field of highly potent cow shit. And I do not agree with George Costanza, okay? Manure isn't pleasant no matter how much you spin it, not in taste, smell, nor pronunciation.
Manure is actually pretty refreshing.
The academic that did this study said, quote, "Maybe focus should be more on spreading information and saving lives in the start of a serious social crisis, but the question is how long we can and should wait with critical reviews, even in situations when the political opposition is also being quiet." End of quote. And this is so absurd. Why are journalists looking at other journalists and politicians before deciding to do their damn job? Swedish journalists didn't spread information to begin with. They made us think the virus wouldn't even come here. And you saved no lives when you were bullying critics of our strategy. You've made sure tons of people have died, and oh boy, I can only wonder why state-loyal journalists would do that. Let me remind you, this is the same journalist that recently doxed corona critics that are scientists, professors, and doctors, faces and names published in one of our absolute biggest papers just because they're deeply concerned and critical of Sweden's strategy. A private Facebook group with 200 people is described as a threat against Swedish democracy, and these scientists are being described as radicals for thinking that face masks would be a good idea. That's enough to portray them as insane conspiracy theorists that spread hate against public officials. The only reason this group was even private to begin with is because anyone critical of Sweden's strategy gets death threats called nation traitor, etc. They made the group private so they can actually focus on discussing, not dealing with people that hate them, aka the country. One of my last COVID updates showed you how Swedes were actively spitting on people demonstrating against our COVID strategy, while the activists were holding signs like "My mother shouldn't be a statistic." So is anyone surprised? After our state media released their Stasi-aspiring article, public officials sounded alarm about too much hate, I can't stand the tone. And our Prime Minister even made a statement against the horrible tone against our officials. Well, let me put it this way. Tegnell got 50,000 emails in a year. He claimed that 80% of those were hate, just pure hate, but when people looked into it, only 10% qualified as hate. The rest was substantial critique and objections. For example, one immigrant saying that he lost his grandmother because of Tegnell. He was surprisingly polite for someone who has to carry that with them the rest of their life. But you want to make me think that Tegnell isn't the hateful psychopath here, sure. At the same time, the Public Health Agency reported a public debater, along with many other people, to the National Security Agency that deals with civil defense and emergency management. Why? Because she wrote an article in January 2020 saying that corona could come to Sweden. And that's it. That's it. She went against Tegnell, so Tegnell's Nazi scientist mob reported her to a national security agency as some kind of foreign spy and threat against our nation? So saying the truth in Sweden not only leaves you ostracized, it makes you a national security risk. How does this not sound like China? But it's just the way that Swedes like it. 200 people who aren't loyal to the government? We can't have that. It's very important we keep funding state media. Wait, what do you mean we're a rape capital? That is fake news. Oh, so fake news. Ooh, I'm so angry I'm gonna just, go away and just sit down. You know, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I don't really give a shit. People wonder why I'm so brutally honest. I wonder why anyone would even want to try to impress this collective.